1880, September. Bryn City, the Tempest Cutter, a small patrol dirigible, vomited a volley of scatterballs which exploded tiny metal shards into the oncoming darkness. To stop the winged intruder from gaining too much ground, ahead of the cruiser, in the gloom of the city floor. Gas lamps marked the creature's passage in their dim orange halos of light. Brass and steel arms covered with feathers fashioned out of copper allowed flight. Gloved hands controlled his precise flight pattern via controller arms welded to ball-bearing elbows attached to 3 cogs, and a key mechanism contained in a box strapped to the faceless man's back. The metallic feathers twinkled in whatever light was available. A large brass key protruded from the mechanical pack. The intricate head of the key turned ever so slow. With each flap of the wings, the key moved to power the flight of the cloaked person. Icarus, power down or I will blast you into oblivion. A hollow, megaphoned voice demanded from the wooden edge of the ship affixed to the dirigible. Where the hell did he come from? The captain demanded as he scanned the sky for an airship. The winged trespasser flapped twice in answer to the order. Deep laughter floated behind the winged, loud enough for Captain Eventide and his crew to hear. The esteemed captain pounded the wooden railing in frustration, the airship forgotten in anger. Can't you maneuver this tub down lower and capture that criminal? By the captain referring to the Tempest as a tub, startled the first mate, who desperately tried to coerce the highly acclaimed 10-man fighter craft after the fleeting winged offender. Hot air, forced out of the balloon, belched from the sides. Dangerous maneuver, for they could crash. The first mate sweated. Ah, Captain. His wing is much faster than usual. Modified is my guess. The younger man removed his blue and white cap to wipe his brow with his forearm, while the other hand gripped the helm. Modified. We need to catch this perpetrator. I want to get a look at his machine before the Steel Lord gets a hold of the plans. That's if Corbeau hasn't fashioned one of his own already. Captain Eventide leaned over the railing and peered through his brass goggles. The lenses tinted to better see through the ash, steam, and black coal dust permeating the city. He could no longer see the winged criminal. The beast had disappeared. Search grid by grid. Begin with the Food Lord's block. He barked the order, even though the first mate was standing next to him. The mate jumped to follow his captain's order. His fingers tapped the metal teletype of his wireless telegraph machine attached to his wrist. The mate's fleet digits conveyed the captain's orders to the militia of Bryn City. Bryn City combined the remnants of Boston and New York. Both cities and those in between lay in smoldering ash piles. The Civil War had been less than civil when it came to total annihilation of most of the countryside. The mutants had done major damage to the east coast of America. In the beginning of the war, the South and the North experimented heavily to create the perfect soldier. Well, the South succeeded first. A mutant being continuous genesis, congen, became the new soldier. A cellular modified human brought war. Its genes were altered with whatever creature was on hand. Dr. Kurt Nestor, a name cursed with blame. His name was a child's threat. If you don't do as you're told, Dr. Nestor will turn you into a mutant. Or, if you go walking outside of the city, Dr. Nestor's mutants will tear the flesh from your body and eat you for breakfast. Such was the doctor's legacy to history. Lightning quick, both physically and mentally. Congen and mutant attributes had advanced well above the capabilities of a normal human. The Southern Army produced a total of a known 52 congen before the North got a hold of the congen technology and created congen of their own, The Congen led armies populated by test subjects who didn't die with the cursed treatment, but instead rejected most or some of the other cells. Mutants, deformed and carrying features of those rejected species cells. Rejected or no, they were still by far stronger and faster than a normal human, twice as dangerous. No one knew exactly how much humanity the mutants kept, for as soon as it was clear the volunteers rejected the serum, they were bundled out into special camps. No human wanted to deal with mutants for fear of harm or death. Then the news came of Dr. Nestor's imprisonment and slavery to his machine. The healed ones didn't take kindly to their savior being terrorized. Both the North and South generals realized controlling these superior creatures became near impossible. The Congen and mutant proved to be too smart and agile to bear control. So, the generals found out, much too late for the devastation of the world. The generals' mutant armies began to swell and rampage the ruined countryside unchecked. Soon, both the South and the North were forced to join and battle their own creations. After the war officially ended as most major cities were devastated and the generals dead, the mutants became the law from Richmond. They controlled eastern 2/3 of America. However, the mutants didn't want America. They wanted freedom, our Constitution, and Richmond. Human survivor-built cities. They made treaties and laws. Humans could travel, and many did. The mutant motto became drama and die. Congen volunteers formed a group of well-trained deputies called justices. The Congen who refused to become justice became the targets and executed by the justices. These men and women of justice hunted down the last of the Congen and mutants, running free and lawless. At first, these outlaws were put to death. Then, as time passed and people healed, the Congen were allowed to live out their lives in the confinement of a prison. The blame shifting from the generals to Dr. Nestor, as the bringer of death and destruction, was the way the humans could heal. Dr. Nestor was human. The new justices were modified by upgraded treatments and better advancements to Nestor's machine. These recruits were termed second wavers. These second wave Congen were physically able to track and catch the first wavers. All the bugs and kinks, like insanity and rage, had been eliminated. The mutants still controlled the lands beyond the cities of the east coast of America. There were too many to contain or imprison. The mutant army was content to control the border states, the Old North, and the extreme southern states. Rumors floated down from stragglers braving the mutant control. They told of Pittsburgh and Albany still existed, but were inaccessible to outsiders. The Indian nation still dominated the West Coast. Anyone fleeing the East was killed. Anyone. Bryn City was the only giant city to rise in the old New England area, in the Ashes, Worcester, Massachusetts. Already a factory town, this site had been ideal to house and utilize the refugees pouring in daily. Baltimore, Atlanta, Washington City, nicknamed aptly Justice Center, Wilmington and Raleigh, North Carolina survived. These half-destroyed cities mutated to fit the civilian masses, fleeing the killing and devastation. In the middle of Bryn City, 10 tall white buildings formed a huge square of greens and parks. This was Bryn City's government center. The middle class, people who supervised or invented, had homes outside the gleaming square, just beyond the white buildings. The factories and shanty towns defined the edges of the city. They formed a strong barrier of defense. Soon, those healthy enough to work, and with a new army of mechanicals, the occupants of Bryn City built a wall of 30 feet high around the city. Huge factories began to put the remnants of society to work. Shanty towns housed those fortunate enough to have shelter. These makeshift homes stayed in the shadow of the huge scrapers built for the ones in power. Steam and steel, smog and coal. Farms layered the outer defense of the city as well as providing the residents with food. Watchtowers and early warning systems were put into place. Farmers and such could escape into the city for protection should they need. The Bryn River had been rerouted to form a wide moat encircling the metropolis. The vigorous water also powered the factories for their necessary steam energy. 10 lords ruled the city, men with intelligence to grab power and hold the supplies needed by the people of the city, as the cities surviving had become feudal states. 10 lords governed their budding cities with iron fists. Each lord controlled a specific supply in a specific city. No money, just a token system. A different colored chip indicated the supply to be dispensed. No lord held more power over the others. Lord of food, media, metals and raw materials, fashion, military, transportation, entertainment, health services, housing, and research development. These 10 families lived in the gleaming white buildings above the polluted air and cinder dust. This same foul air allowed the winged person to escape the clutches of Captain Eventide and his tempest. A dark gray cape concealed the black-clothed body of the creature. Heavy jackboots contacted the compacted dirt behind a tavern just outside the gates of the steel factory. Huge tubes from the industrial complex belched steam into the alley, further hiding the winged in the plumes. The wings collapsed neatly into the sides of the pack, quick and efficient. With a flourish of dark material, his gray cape extinguished the glinting metal of the winged. "Hey, mister, can you spare a chip for food?" A young girl approached the dark invader. She held out her ash-stained hand expectantly. The man grunted as his gloved hand scrounged in his black frock coat pocket. He dropped 3 green chips into her grubby hand. He held a black gloved finger to his lips. "Shh." The grungy girl giggled. She nodded, then evaporated into the mist and darkness. He watched her go. Melting into the eben of night, the man headed toward the 10 gleaming white buildings in the center of Bryn City. The police dirigibles circled aimlessly above, searching,